of contentment. How can we be happy with our lot? Well, this is a huge subject, and the way I want to just briefly approach it is through something called reference group theory. In the First World War, some sociologists were asked why it was that the American troops who'd come into the war very near the end and who were very well equipped and fed and had reasonable clothes and so on, were really dissatisfied and fairly miserable, whereas the British and the French troops who had been fighting for years and were in atrocious material circumstances were more cheerful. And after investigation and asking them, they realized that we don't live our lives in ourselves, we live our lives as mirrors of other people. And this is an idea that David Hume, the philosopher, had, that basically everything is understood comparatively. We understand black by light, by white, and day by night, and male by female, and so on. So we intrinsically think comparatively. And the American troops were thinking comparatively with their friends in America, writing them letters saying, gee, I'm having a great time and I went out with my girlfriend and so on and so on. And they felt miserable, whereas the British and French troops, almost all males of their age, were fighting or were dead or were wounded, and so they didn't feel that sense of comparative deprivation. And that's a real key, that to be contented, you have to place yourself in comparison to something which doesn't make you feel bad. What does make you feel bad often is a sense of that other people are being promoted and you are not being promoted. Often there is a feeling of limited good things, and so a colleague of yours gets a promotion or a prize and you feel deprived in some way. And that's also a sense of envy, as I've discussed elsewhere. So what you have to do, and I try to do, whenever I'm feeling sorry for myself, which is not too often, but it occasionally happens, I then look around the world, or I look at history, and I think, my God, if I'd been somewhere in some benighted part of the British Empire or the Roman Empire, if I'd been on the slave ships, if I'd been, appalling in the First World War, and even comparatively to my own fairly recent past, when I remember the situation I was in the 50s with illness and my parents away and sometimes lonely and so on and so on. And then I think of the affluence and good health and so on that has emerged in some nations since. I feel contented. Likewise, if I feel I'm hard done by in some way, and I look across the world and I see the conditions in Africa or many parts of the world, I realize how extraordinarily fortunate I am. But we cannot really escape from this process. The main thing, of course, is to isolate what the cause of our discontent is. And once you've got a cause for many of the things that worry or undermine or make us anxious, then you can start to do something about it. So the discovery of this idea that we are constantly looking at others and seeing ourselves in their mirror opens up all sorts of possibilities for self-adjustment, self-examination, and self-improvement. And I think this is something I actually learnt very early on at school, that I was fortunate in comparison to someone else, as I feel very deeply now.